It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
Episode number 114. Hello, how are you? Welcome to the show. Recording this on the 14th of June, 2017. My daughter's 12th birthday, by the way. Welcome to the show. We had a shooting in Washington, D.C. this morning that involved one congressman, one aide, two Capitol Hill police officers, and a nutbag leftist Bernie Sanders supporter. We'll get to details on that in a few minutes. I want to thank Dr. Alex Nelson for being a sponsor for the radio program. If you need an adjustment, you got some low back pain, some shoulder pain, carpal tunnel, neck pain, headaches, chiropractic adjustment can help you. It can do wonders for you. Trust me on this. They got a $30 Veterans and Veterans Day, or Veterans Family, I should say, adjustment fees. Just $30. Need to give them a call. 816-741-4711, 816-741-4711. They're on Congress Avenue in Kansas City, fountainoflifechiro.com. That's fountainoflifechiro.com. Also, Grass Monsters KC is a sponsor of the radio program. They do commercial and residential mowers. They are badass, awesome mowers. Dixie Chopper Hustlers. Dixie Chopper made in Indiana, Hustler made in Kansas, American made, and they'll last you forever. They'll last you a lifetime, whether it's just your house or your commercial mowing enterprise. GrassMonstersKC.com, 5520 Raytown Road. Raytown Mow. Okay, let's get to the news of the day. A shooter in Washington, D.C. goes to a baseball practice. Republican lawmakers are there. And this guy shows up to this baseball practice. Obviously, he'd done his research as to where they would be. Asked whether there were Democrats playing or Republicans playing. Once he found out the Republicans are playing, he decided to start shooting people. Here is Representative Ron DeSantis from Florida talking about the guy who rolled up on this practice.
Doing this for however many weeks. The game's tomorrow night, and I actually left a little early, probably about a couple minutes before this all happened. And as I was getting into the car with one of my colleagues, Jeff Duncan, there was a guy that walked up to us that was asking whether there was Republicans or Democrats out there, and it was just a little odd. And then he kind of walked towards the area where all this happened. So we've told the police that.
Was he carrying anything?
He was not carrying anything at the time, but from where the shots were, I would think that would have probably been staged because there was no one that was obviously walking around with a rifle at the time. But it was just a little odd that he kind of really, walked up to us to ask, and then went ahead and it was probably like 5 minutes after we pulled out of the parking lot.
What time did you leave, Congressman? Because according to Brett Baer, the shooting started this morning at 7:15. The gunman with a rifle.
We left it probably no later than 7:10.
Okay, so we know that this guy, who, by the way, is from Belleville, Illinois, James Hodgkinson, he is no longer living, thank goodness, but unfortunately, we won't know his true motivations, although when you ask and say, are they Republicans or Democrats out there? And when you say Republicans, and he starts shooting, you might want to kind of go, maybe he hates Republicans. I hate to state the obvious, but that's what it is. I'm sorry, but I'm pissed. I am effing pissed off. We had violent rallies the day that Donald Trump was inaugurated in Washington, D.C. Violent rallies. Limousine burned, storefronts broken. Leftists on the march. We got this idiot, Kathy Griffin, holding up a severed Trump head. We've got this elitist group of Shakespeare in the Park in Washington, D.C., featuring a play about Julius Caesar, where Julius Caesar is Donald Trump, and he's stabbed to death in a very gory fashion on stage. You've got rabid leftists spewing hatred, spewing violence, not only on late-night television, but on the web. What the hell? Did you think this wasn't going to happen? You think this was going to trigger somebody? This is the typical profile, kids. Bernie Sanders supporter. Member of anti-Republican groups, including Terminate the Republican Party. 66-year-old guy, Belleville, Illinois, troubled individual. A couple days ago, he posted an angry tweet about Donald Trump on Facebook. I want to say, Mr. President, for being an asshole, you are truly the biggest asshole we have ever had in the Oval Office. He belonged to terminate the Republican Party. The road to hell is paved with Republicans. Donald Trump is not my president. President Bernie Sanders. Illinois burners united to resist Trump. Boycott the Republican Party. Endorse Republican fraud. Terminate the Republican Party. This guy obviously was a nutbag, but he also was a Trump hater. He wrote online, Trump the traitor. Trump has destroyed our democracy. It's time to destroy Trump and company. He's a Bernie Sanders supporter. He is a radical leftist who's been whipped into a frenzy by the bullshit that's been in the media for the last year. Donald Trump has been threatened with impeachment since before he was elected. Donald Trump is supposed, and his followers are racists. They want people to die. They're Nazis. What the hell do you think is going to happen when you talk shit like that? What do you think is going to happen when you talk crap like this? Here's Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul was there. It's amazing that only 4 people were shot. The shooter dead. That 4 other people shot. Amazing that more didn't die. Here's Rand Paul with the details this morning.
I'm at the farthest point on the field of anybody from the gunshots, but the gunshots are still hitting in the dirt in right field where there are 2 staffers laying on the ground. I think one of them may have been hit, but between me and them is about a 15, 20-foot fence. So one of the staffers decides, the heck with this, I'm not staying here. The bullets are flying all around me. He decided to climb the fence, and he climbed a 20-foot fence in about 3 seconds, plopped down behind me, and there was a big oak tree behind the batting cage. He and I are behind the oak tree, but the gunshots are still going in the dirt in right field in the warning tracks, so about 5 or 10 feet from us. And at some point, I'd say 50 or 60 shots at least have been fired from the shooter. And then we start to hear the Capitol Hill police respond, and theirs is a different weapon, so you hear pistol shots going back at the shooter. Our lives were saved by the Capitol Hill police. Had they not been there, I think it would have been a massacre. And you are completely helpless. And, having no self-defense and no way to get to somebody, the field was basically a killing field. I mean, if you were to run out there while the shooter was still shooting, he would have shot anybody. He was shooting people as far away as right field.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, he wasn't a very good shot. Agent David Bailey, Agent Crystal Griner, Capitol Hill Police, they saved lives. Crystal Griner got shot in the leg. David Bailey got shot in the leg. David Bailey stayed on his feet and engaged the shooter to stop the death that could have happened. It would have been a massacre had they not been there. Zach Barth apparently is an aide to Roger Williams, a Republican from Texas. He's injured as well as, of course, the House Majority Whip, Steve Scalise. This is violent. The left is a violent mob of this country, whether that be on campus, whether that be at rallies in Washington, D.C. and around the country against Donald Trump, whether that be at Donald Trump campaign rallies when Donald Trump was running for office. Leftists showing up, getting there early, getting in people's faces, attempting to starting fights. This bullshit has got to stop. Lee Harvey Oswald, communist. John Wilkes Booth, Democrat. The right doesn't act this way. When you are a conservative in this country, you don't act this way. But I'm going to tell you, you're only going to be pushed so far. Senator Jeff Flake was a hero today. He helped treat Representative Steve Scalise's leg, or his hip when he got shot. Had to wait about 10 minutes because the bullets were still flying, and the Capitol Hill police officers were battling it out, distracting this guy. Here's a little bit from Senator Jeff Flake.
Capitol police officers armed with you here?
Yes. You
knew ahead of time. So.
We did. Steve Scalise is a member of the leadership team. He's the whip, and so he has a security detail. There 2 of his detail were shot. One African-American gentleman shot in the leg, and I believe he's the one that brought the shooter down. He ran around for quite a while with a leg wound. Returning fire. And then after I got out I was the first out to Steve, and then Brad, another member from Ohio, who's a physician, came out, and we applied pressure on the wound.
And he seems okay to you?
Yeah, he was coherent the whole time. But boy, he laid out he laid out there for at least 10 minutes alone in the field, and we couldn't get to him while there were shots. It's right here. Field in front.
Did the shooter say anything?
Not that there was a lot of yelling going on, but to tell you the truth, some of the other members had different angles, so they may have heard him yell something, but I didn't. But the two security detail, I think the woman was Crystal, is her name, was shot, I think, pretty early, and she went down, and so the other gentleman was returning fire.
Okay. Radical leftist Bernie Sanders supporter. People have been whipped into a frenzy. You've got late night television going after the president in an unprecedented fashion. Stephen Colbert saying that Donald Trump's mouth is a cock holster for Vladimir Putin. You've got an ongoing investigation of something that is not real, Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. The Democrat Party postponed a lawsuit against the president by 200 members of Congress. That was very big of them. Really big of them. Before this happened this morning, there was talk that the Democrats are going to carry this Russian collusion bullshit through the next election, through the 2018. Even though there is no evidence of any collusion. But they're going to continue the lie until 2018. Is this where we hit bottom? Is this the point where we go, okay, wow? I don't think so. When you've got comedians holding up severed bloody heads of the president, when you've got Shakespeare in the Park production stabbing him to death, when you've got threats against the president online all over the place, when you've got vitriolic hate speech spewing from the left because they can't take the fact that they got their asses handed to them by Donald Trump. Representative Sean Duffy, Republican from Wisconsin, was on Fox and Friends after the shooting this morning to talk about what happened.
So, first off, members of Congress, we don't travel with any kind of security, as you all know. The only kind of security that is given to anyone in Congress is the two leaders of the minority party, which would be Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi. And then on the leadership side is the speaker, the leader, and the whip, which is Steve Scalise. So thank God that Steve Scalise had a security detail there that could fire back and protect not just Steve, but the rest of the members of Congress and other people who were at the field.
Right.
So
let's talk about the temperature of rhetoric in Washington, D.C., Representative Duffy.
So you have to know this field is off campus from the Capitol Hill. So obviously, who would suspect that there's going to be a game or a practice going on where there's members of Congress playing? Someone had to think this through.
Yep.
And obviously, they were thinking through. They appear to have been targeting Steve Scalise, but also Republicans. And I just, as someone who I have 8 kids and a concerned wife, always, as everyone does for their family, the temperature in politics has gone up so high, and the kind of threats that come people's way to Republicans and to Democrats.
And when you say you want to repeal or replace Obamacare, and you've got people saying that people are going to die, when you talk about scaling back the EPA and how the left is saying that the world is over, we pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and everybody's going to die, and we're evil. What the hell do you expect?
And the threats that are made and the violence, I think this country has to take a pause and really rethink our values and our morals. And you have good people on both sides who come here to serve that are attacked with language all the time. We have to look at this and take the temperature down. These are real people with real families. And if you get that kind of leadership, I think that signals to the rest of the country, hey, these aren't sitting targets. These are real men and women who have families and lives.
Okay. That doesn't matter. Donald Trump is not a person. Barron Trump is not a person. Ivanka Trump is not a person. Melania Trump's not a person. If you look at the left, they never have anything good to say about them. And you even go after the freaking son, the 11-year-old son of the president in the media. It's really sickening. Representative Gary Palmer, Republican from Alabama, talked to Bill Himmer this morning, Wednesday morning, the 14th of June, my daughter's 12th birthday, by the way, about what happened.
I was about 20 yards from the shooter. We were taking batting practice. I was at shortstop. Scalise was at second, and Trent Kelly was at third. And I heard a gunshot, and I yelled at Trent, "That's a gunshot." I think the guy, initial shot, he was trying to hit Trent, and he missed it. And Trent yelled "shooter," and we all broke for the first base side of the field to get off the field. And he fired 2 more times, and I saw Scalise go down.
Where was the gunman, sir?
He was on the third base side of the field.
Was he behind the dugout taking cover or not?
You know, I couldn't tell, Bill, where he was, but I think he was right at the fence. And as soon as Trent yelled "shooter," we all took off.
Did most of the members and their staff run for that first base dugout? Was that your recollection?
They did. And some of the members went into the dugout, including one of the staffers or one of the guys who comes out and helps us. He was hit in the lower leg. And Matt Micah, who suffered a chest wound, that we've just gotten word that I think he's going to be okay.
How many times we need to hear after an incident of violence like this happens that it's a leftist, that's a Bernie Sanders supporter? And why shouldn't we think that, Bernie Sanders, us versus them rhetoric, 1% rhetoric, even though he's a 1%er, might incite some? Representative Gary Palmer about where he was this morning.
I was at shortstop. I was 20 steps shooter.
So you hear the gunfire on your right side. Is that correct?
I yelled to Trent, "That's a gunshot." And Trent turns and says, "It's a shooter." And the guy fired again. We all took off toward the first base side of the field. That's where the gate to the field is.
From
and
the first
shot
round
again
fired, you thought it was a gunshot then? You did not think this was a...
Yeah.
Thank God this guy is a leftist. Leftists generally preach for gun control, generally say that no one should be armed. I think many of those things might have attributed to the fact the guy couldn't hit anything. You got a high-powered rifle, and you're standing out and you're looking at just people standing on a naked baseball field. I'm not meaning to be flippant at all. At least this dipshit didn't know how to shoot.
I would say it was 10 minutes at least, maybe longer.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say if it were not for Scalise's security, the Capitol Police, it would have been horrible. I have no doubt that there would have been people killed. But they engaged the guy. Both of them were wounded. One female officer in the leg and another officer in the leg. And they continued to return fire. I can't tell you how grateful I am for their courage and defending us.
Could have been a lot worse. Think about that. Think about if there weren't 2 officers returning fire on the field. Think about that. All he would have had to do was just walk through whatever the chain link fence. If you've been on a traditional American baseball field, perhaps you played on one like I did when I was a kid. All you'd have to go in by the dugout, just walk right out on the field, and as they lay there, just go over and pow, pow, pow. Done. The House Majority Whip was on the ground. All he would have had to do is walk right out there and shoot him. Rand Paul out in the outfield, all he had to run out there and just shoot him too. Could have been dozens killed. Could have been dozens killed. No matter what your political affiliation, God bless those who would take an oath to protect and defend, and what they did today. Here's Representative Gary Palmer again, Republican from Alabama, talking about how we need to come together.
It's a different world, and it's really sad that things have come to this point. We've got to figure out a way to heal the country. This is. I don't know the gentleman. It's been reported that he asked one of our members if we were Republicans or Democrats. One of our guys was leaving practice, and I can't confirm that. that we need to figure out a way to bring the country together.
There were some things that were very taboo when Barack Obama was president of the United States. A lot of language was tempered. You know, a lot of radical things said on both sides of the political equation, don't get me wrong. But right now we're dealing with an unprecedented time in American politics. You've got a party. You've got an entertainment industry that is bent on ending a president's presidency before it began and using whatever rhetoric it takes to get to those ends. Is it any surprise this crap happened today? Is it any surprise that this happened today? I mean, you tell me you haven't thought that Donald Trump, there were going to be an assassination attempt. And I know there has been assassination attempts and there have been people who wanted to kill presidents forever. But this is extreme. Remember when George Bush was president? There was a movie that was made that talked about the assassination of George W. Bush. And it was celebrated at Cannes. Now we're seeing the same thing with this president and the Republican Party. I honestly, I don't know where we go from this, to be honest. You've got radical leftists on campus. Radical leftists on campus everywhere, including UC Berkeley, where one speaker was the building that he was in. Milo Yiannopoulos was attacked, windows broken, barricades torn down, fires started. He had to retreat the campus. Ann Coulter was the next to speak. She wasn't allowed to speak because it would have been too dangerous. You've got what happened at the University of Missouri with Melissa Click saying, "Give me some muscle to get this reporter out of here." You got Evergreen State where they asked all the white faculty and students to leave campus, and now the leftists on that campus are carrying around baseball bats. Any surprise? Any surprise this is going to happen? You've got a inquisition against the president for collusion that there is no evidence happened. It is so batshit crazy to believe that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russian government to throw the election. There's no evidence whatsoever. But Democrats are going to carry this narrative into the election. They'll continue to whip up this their base, their radical base, into a lather. And this is where we are today. This is where we are today. Yesterday, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General for the United States, he appeared before a congressional committee talking about Russian collusion. Here is his a part of his opening statement.
Let me state this clearly, colleagues. I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with any campaign or election in the United States. Further, I have no knowledge of any such conversations by anyone connected to the Trump campaign. I was your colleague in this body for 20 years, at least some of you, and and the suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
By the way, the shooter in Washington, D.C., huge fan of Rachel Maddow. Huge fan of late-night TV, Stephen Colbert, among other things. Why is MSNBC experiencing the biggest ratings that it's ever experienced? Because people like Rachel Maddow are spewing Trump hate, are spewing conspiracy theories. Facts be damned. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. There are just enough people in the country who hate the fact that Donald Trump was elected and Hillary Clinton lost. There are just enough people in the country to make their ratings go through the ceiling. And that's maybe 4 or 5 million people. 4 or 5 million people who've been whipped into hate, who have been told that the election was stolen from them, and refuse to acknowledge that Donald Trump is the president. And then, of course, you got the Trump Shakespeare in the park in New York City. This is being the latest affront. They have somebody on stage. They're doing Julius Caesar. Julius just happens to be wearing a blue jacket and a red tie and a white shirt. Looks exactly like Donald Trump.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection. Check out the unbuttoned overcoat and red tie that hangs over his waist. It's a staging of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar that is outraging many. The controversial production is taking place here in New York City's Central Park. The staging is being seen as a direct jab at Trump and the controversial political climate in this country. There are other similarities to Trump. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, bears a resemblance to First Lady Melania.
Big hands for me!
This is how the assassination scene has usually been done. Julius Caesar repeatedly stabbed by the members of the Roman Senate. In the new version, you see a bloodied Caesar, his white dress shirt soaked in blood. There was mixed reaction about this new twist.
I didn't like that they made this person who looks like Trump get assassinated. It's not a good message.
I don't think it's disrespectful for the president to be murdered on stage. It's not really the president's theater.
Oh, really?
Everybody
Okay.
knows
Sure.
it's theater.
This all comes on the heels of that outrageous image of Kathy Griffin holding the severed head made to look like Trump. She cried during a news conference where she was both defiant and apologetic.
That apology absolutely stands. I feel horrible.
As the cast took its bow, the audience applauded with a standing ovation. No word from the White House on the controversial production.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now. This would have been unacceptable during Barack Obama's tenure. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine Barack Obama being stabbed to death or hung on stage? Could you imagine? A lot of that going on. Unacceptable. Here is Speaker Paul Ryan talking on the floor of the House today.
This House today. We are all horrified by this dreadful attack on our friends and on our colleagues and those who serve and protect this Capitol. We are all praying for those who are attacked and for their families. Steve Scalise, Zachary Barth, Matt Micah, Special Agent David Bailey, Special Agent Crystal Griner. We are all giving our thoughts to those currently being treated for their injuries at this moment. And we are united. We are united in our shock. We are united in our anguish. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Maybe this will tone down Maxine Waters screaming that this president should be impeached with no evidence that he did anything that would be impeachable. It's time for this to stop. This BS to stop. Let the president be the president. Let the president do what he does. Let him complete his agenda, and if it fails, it fails. But the hate speech, the impeachment speech, has to stop. I'm going to leave it at this today, okay? I'm going to leave it at this because this is a big story. The left is throwing a tantrum that has become dangerous. The radical left in the country, those in charge of most of the media, those who are on campus, they have created an environment, divided. The country's been divided for 8 years. You watched a president sit at the helm and watch Rome burn. Cities were burned. Neighborhoods were burned. The president didn't say anything. As the country further divided itself along race, class, gender, sex, political ideology. And this is what it has wrought. Before I go, I want to say thank you to the sponsors of this radio program. Grass Monsters KC, as I mentioned earlier, fantastic residential and commercial mowers, grassmonsterskc.com, 5520 Raytown Road, Raytown Mow. If you don't live in this area, just Google Dixie Chopper and Hustler Mowers. Also, Dr. Alex Nelson, fountainoflifecairo.com, fountainoflifecairo.com. If you need an adjustment, if you've got back pain, if you've got shoulder pain, carpal tunnel, you're just sore and you want to get back to the gym, see the doctor. All right? In the meantime, God bless you guys. Prayers and thoughts with those who risked their lives to save those of others. And we will see you back here for episode number 115 real soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.